Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second free webinar. I'm Tom Powers, the Artistic Director of Doc NYC and the host of Pure Nonfiction. If you watched our first webinar on new strategies for distribution, you know we had some tech issues with our live stream that was caused by a temporary outage. We're hoping for a smoother ride today, but if we do have problems, I want you to know we will record the session and make it available later like we did last time. We will keep you notified in the right-hand comment section if we experience interruptions or need to start a new session. Last night, I have to say, I got a little scared because I lost my home internet connection in Montclair, New Jersey, just briefly. So if that happens during this talk, my colleague Caitlin Boyle is standing by in Brooklyn to quickly restart a new session. And again, we'll notify you in the comments section. All right, today's theme is cash flow for filmmakers at home. How do you bring in money when everything is ground to a halt? In the last couple of weeks, several emergency relief funds have been announced for filmmakers with more to come. We'll be updating those on the Doc NYC Monday Memo email. You can find links to many of the things we're discussing today at the webinar resources button at the bottom of this page. Today, we're going to be talking to Asad Muhammad at American Documentary about their fund. We'll also discuss what's possible with crowdfunding during this quarantine. We'll talk to Elise McCave from Kickstarter and filmmaker Gary Hustwit, who's been a real trailblazer in crowdfunding with his films. And we don't mean to suggest that these paths are going to work for everyone, but we just want to keep the ideas cooking. Before we get into it, I want to cover some user tips for the Crowdcast platform. We invite you to introduce yourself in the chat box to the right. Tell us where you're from and what's your project. I also encourage you to fill out your Crowdcast profile with your bio so we can learn more about you, and upload a photo so we can see your face. Right now, this looks a little bit like Space Invaders with all those icons. If you experience choppy video or audio, you can go to the help menu on the top right and switch to compatibility mode. If you have a question during the session, go to the menu button at the bottom and click Ask a Question. In that area, you can also upvote other people's questions so we can see what's most in demand, or you can leave feedback to other people's questions. This video will be taped, so afterwards you can share the link for later viewing. Now I'm going to move to our first guest, Asad Muhammad. He is the VP of Impact and Engagement Strategy at American Documentary. That's the nonprofit that runs the esteemed POV series on PBS. Asad has worked at American Documentary for 2 years. Before that, he worked in education and juvenile justice in various cities, including my hometown, Detroit. He joins us today from Queens, New York. Asad, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone.
So can you give a quick overview of what is American Documentary and POV, and maybe tell us some of the standout films that you broadcast last year?
Sure. Yeah. So American Documentary is the longest host POV, which is the longest running documentary series and nonfiction series on PBS. We will be going into our 33rd season this year. We also are the host for America Reframed, which shows on World. So we have 2 shows that feature independent works from filmmakers from all over the world. And we also have our newest strand, which is POV Shorts, where we're going into our 3rd season with POV Shorts. So in our time for being around for 33 years, we've supported over 650 artists, which includes not only filmmakers, but interactive and emerging media artists. So we have POV Spark, as well as POV Engage. The unique thing that we're able to give to filmmakers is to support their impact campaign plans. So my department really oversees the education and community engagement work the organization, along with the station relations, navigating relationships with 350 plus PBS stations across the country. Some of our standout works from season 32 was The Rescue List, which is now streaming on our website and on PBS. The Rescue List really focuses on human trafficking in Ghana and tells the story of a dynamic group of rescuers and Ghanaians who are saving children from child slavery. And there's so many films that I could go into. One of the shorts I'll also highlight is that we have returning filmmakers, Michelle Stevenson and Joe Brewster. They have created a short film, and there's a big announcement that we're going to have in a few weeks around their feature film that Michelle is bringing called Stateless to POV, and we will announce our full season. But I really want to highlight some films that are coming down a pipeline for season 33. We're doing our first episodic in a few months. That will be And She Could Be Next, which really focuses on women in politics and how we are in a new day where we're really embracing as a country women leadership in our legislative government. So we are excited about that episodic series that is coming up as well.
That's great. So let's talk about the emergency relief funds that you announced just last week, I think. I understand you've done this before, even before coronavirus, you had piloted an emergency fund. So can you talk about why you piloted it in the first place and what it's for?
Yeah, so as we hear often from filmmakers, there's not enough support. I think the industry is shaped in a way that really encourages some toxic competition amongst some amazing artists. And we know that many artists are not making a full-time living off of being a filmmaker. So POV Engage, we really wanted to make sure that we can support artists. And although we're not a funder in the traditional sense, we thought about, we work so closely with artists and we know what real life struggles they face because we build relationships with them over time. And this Artist Emergency Fund was a pilot program that first started in 2018. And we learned a great deal from that pilot program. We had an advisory board that was made up of long-time documentary professionals that represented public media, worked in film festivals, also supported artists who had their works on PBS, and some foundations were on the board as well. What we were able to get over 25 different projects, 25 individuals funded and giving grants up to $1,000. But when COVID hit, so we had plans to relaunch that, but when COVID-19 hit, we had to pivot and think about how we could spread that money far and wide. So we are giving out small, tiny grants right now that will only support our artists for about a month. So we're hoping to turn around the funds within 2 weeks of an application. I must say that we've been overwhelmed by the response. So as of today, we are approaching 400 applications, and we just launched last week, Wednesday, April 1st.
And so one thing I want to clarify, is this only for US-based filmmakers?
Yes, so right now, it is only based for US-based filmmakers, yes.
And can you talk about, so you've got these 400 applications, what are the factors that you're weighing?
Yeah, so we know that there's so many artists in need, and we have some guiding principles that we trust artists who are saying that they're in need, that they're actually in need. So we're not so much weighing if their concerns are valid, but we do not fund. There are some eligibility requirements. So unfortunately, we do not fund students who are pursuing documentary filmmaking, but has not produced any works yet. So the fund is not applicable to students. We also have to ensure that you've had a public exhibition of your work. So, and it can't just be that you posted it on YouTube, but actually engaged the public in person or virtual screenings such as OV would be accepted in terms of having a screening of your work. We also are doing small grants for $250 for people who are, and yes, it's tiny. It's a drop in the bucket, but $250 for individuals who need support with their groceries, and $500 with folks who have dependents in the household. And we're funding health insurance premiums. So if you are fortunate enough and privileged enough to have health insurance, even though it should be health insurance for all in this country, and we're not there yet. But if you have a health insurance premium that needs to be paid, we will be able to support up to $500 for that, as well as medical supplies or prescriptions, doctor visits, those kinds of co-pays. We can also support, knowing that so many people are worried. We have staff and filmmakers who are expecting children, and we want to make sure that we can give some relief to people expecting a child or confronting a health concern.
Yeah. This is such a great effort. I know that there's a number of people who are tuning in who are not from the US, and so who this won't apply to. And to you, I'd say stand by, because in a couple minutes we're going to be talking about some crowdfunding things that have more of a more application in other countries. But I do want to, as we wrap up with you, Asad, give a shout out to the people who are supporting this program, and also call attention to the fact that you are open to having other people come in and join support to grow this program. Am I right?
Yes. So we are actually, we definitely are thankful for our funders. Our funders are listed on this page. As you can see, Open Society Foundation, we have Chicago Media Project. We just got a commitment from the Wincoat Foundation and so many other generous funders and donors. But unfortunately, tomorrow is going to be the last day that we can have the first batch of applicants considered, because we have learned from some other initiatives where people continue to apply, and we do not, when the funds are gone, and we do not want to waste anyone's time or cause more harm to artists by having them apply in the state of emergency for funding that is not there. So if you are interested in applying, and I encourage everyone in need to apply, if you are interested, please apply before 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow.
Wednesday, April 8th.
Yep, Wednesday, April 8th. Thank you. And I just want to also get on people's radar that we will be launching a fund next month, a mental health fund that will support people getting the the support they need around in this time where we are seeing this country definitely go through it with mental health concerns. You know, staying indoors is not an easy thing. And I think we're going to see a lot more mental health challenges in our society. And we want to make sure that our filmmakers have food, they have the medical support that they need, and that they have a healthy mindset as they continue to craft their brilliant works. And artists really serve our communities in a strong way, and we're seeing that in this time, all the innovation that's coming from artists, and it's important that we're taking care of them. So thank you for highlighting our Artist Emergency Fund. I'm sorry that it's closing tomorrow, but we are hoping to reopen it as soon as we get more funding. And with all the applications, we have good reason for funders to invest in this initiative.
Well, that's great. Asad, I thank you for joining us today. I'm going to let you go, and we're going to team up Elise McCave, who's joining us shortly. So, you know, if there are further updates about future funds that American Documentary is doing and that other people are doing, we will be reporting on those in our weekly Monday memo. You can sign up for the Monday memo. There's a link in the webinar resources button at the bottom of this page. That's our weekly newsletter that comes out from Doc NYC, where we give you all the week's documentary news. So thanks very much, Asad.
Thank you so much, Tom. Take care.
Sorry to cut off Asad there abruptly. So before I get to Elise, I want to highlight one other webinar that took place, sponsored by IDA, ITVS, and Firelight Media. This is also really geared for US filmmakers on tips on how to apply for federal coronavirus relief. If you are a small business owner, you are eligible for that. And these organizations have taken the time to really delve into it. So go to the IDA website and check that out. All right, now we're going to move to Elise McCave. She's joining us from Brooklyn. She's the Senior Director of Film at Kickstarter for over 3 years. Before that, at BritDoc, now called Doc Society, for 8 years. Just last Thursday, Kickstarter announced a new initiative called Inside Voices, designed to bring attention to smaller projects that artists are making while we're all trapped inside. Elise, well, first of all, welcome, Elise.
Thank you so much, Tom. Nice to see you. I'm sorry I didn't put my bow tie on.
Well, next time. There'll be a next time.
Yeah, okay.
Before we get into talking about the Inside Voices project, I wonder if you can just, remind us what Kickstarter has been doing for films for over 10 years, the scope of financing that it's helped filmmakers raise from their followers.
Right. Yeah. So as you said, we're more than a decade old now. Launched in 2009, and in that time we've had a lot of fantastic films come through the site, with most recently, our most recent kind of Oscar winner was a short animation this year. If anyone has seen it or not seen it, you should check it out. But a lot of successful documentaries in that time as well. Docs do particularly well on Kickstarter for a number of reasons, and so as a result, the average that documentaries raise is $20,000, which is significantly higher than the average for the film and video category as a whole. So film is one of our 15 creative categories that we work work with, and Liz Cook Mao and I work with filmmakers specifically as part of our outreach activities, with lots of other colleagues working with creators from the other creative categories.
So talk to us about the Inside Voices initiative that you just announced last Thursday. What is that, and what were your intentions with that? Sure.
So we wanted to come up with something that is more of an invitation than a demand, since I know that it is a very stressful moment. And we didn't want to make a demand on people who are feeling sort of overwhelmed and anxious to be creative, this sort of demand to be productive with all this spare time we have. So it's more of a sort of an invitation that invites creators, and obviously in my case, I'm speaking specifically to filmmakers, to continue making their work from home with our support. It's an invitation for those who are perhaps finding solace in creative work at the moment, and also to those who are potentially looking to substitute lost revenue streams. An invitation to throw something together that they could work on from home that would maybe stem that flow a little bit. So the idea is, create what you have at hand, or create something with what you have at hand, and then share the work online via a project on Kickstarter that has ideally some pretty simple rewards. We're really we are stressing digital rewards, things that don't require you to produce physical anything and go to the mailbox or anything like that, thinking about links to things that people can watch or experience through their computers. So
I know a big question on people's minds is, with the economy contracting and everyone more worried about funds, are you seeing giving starting to contract to projects on Kickstarter?
So this is what we're seeing from our side. We have seen a dip in our business, which is mostly attributable to a dip in the number of projects launching. People kind of getting a little bit nervous, getting slightly cold feet, and looking to delay launches maybe until things seem a little bit more stable. On the flip side, backers still seem pretty steady in the of live projects. In fact, last week we had a tabletop game, like a board game, that raised over $6 million in its opening few days. So people are there, and they're at their computers, and they are backing projects. Obviously, not everyone has the same capacity to back, but overall, we're not seeing a massive dip in in backings to projects. We're just seeing a dip in the number of projects. I think what's really challenging for filmmakers at this moment, and to some extent all creators on the site, is their own appetite to ask for support for creative projects at this moment. I think that is going to be a major kind of impact for us, is just people wanting to kind of back away from projects and not feeling comfortable to ask for support. Right.
So getting back to Inside Voices, this seems like a scheme to encourage people to try smaller projects. So maybe it's not the time to be asking for $30,000 for a project, but you could ask for $500 or $1,000 to create some little special short to share with people.
Exactly. What I'm hoping that we see is some sort of modest but fun creative projects that, in our case, perhaps use documentary as a starting point. We're looking for the person who needs to buy that piece of software so that they can, turn the audio from that shoot into a one-off podcast episode, or, who doesn't have the editing software that they want or need. Someone who has always wanted to spend some days cutting together, the behind-the-scenes footage from that old project, or someone who has leftover merch from an old project and they want to, kind of offer it up. So we're looking for sort of, creative spins on projects that perhaps have had to be put on pause because you were about to go into production, or for whatever reason you can't move forward with what you were moving forward with, but you have something else that you could repurpose in this moment.
Now, you just announced this on Thursday. I'm looking at your site right now where it looks like some people have jumped in right away. I'm not seeing film projects here yet, but I see some music projects, some comic books, children's books, games. Any kind of early reports in the last 5 days on how these projects are doing? I guess I take these green lines are the indicators of how well they've reached their funding goals.
Yeah, exactly. So far it's a mixed bag. We've got some really nice projects so far, and we've got a shorts anthology in there somewhere about people living in quarantine that's come out of Illinois, and as you said, some really nice music projects. We have a recording of a musical and an accompanying podcast about it, which they'll turn into a documentary if they hit their stretch goal. There's an album of lullabies in there recorded from a Danish musician's balcony. So it's definitely people getting creative with, what they can do and what they have.
So here's the one you were just talking about, Quarantine Land, that has a modest, little less than $400 goal that's more than halfway there.
Exactly. It's sort of like a fun small project, and let's see what they can come up with. But in the meantime, I hope that they those filmmakers kind of have fun and maybe find a little sanity in there somewhere.
Now, my impression of being a Kickstarter supporter of many projects is that typically people are doing a 30-day window to raise money. But if I had an idea for something quick and I felt like I had a good mailing list, I could do a shorter time span, right? I could do 1 week to raise the money.
Totally, yeah. Experimentation is sort of the name of the game here. No campaign too short, no goal too low. And if you feel like, that you're not sort of sticking to the rules, or you're sort of bending the rules and you're not sure or whatever, I would say just kind of shoot me or Liz an email, and we can figure out a way to make sure that, filmmakers can get what they need whilst also sort of staying in bounds. So I would say, yes, I'm Elise at Kickstarter.com, or you can also get us both at film@Kickstarter.com. We're sort of happy to help people kind of riff on an idea or give an idea a once over and let you know of any red flags, or whatever we need to do to make it fly, basically.
I should add that tomorrow, so I've got a slide for this. Tomorrow, you and Liz are doing a webinar for Sundance. So the Sundance collab site, which is normally open only to members, they've opened up the doors to the general public. There's a lot of great archived master classes there. And tomorrow you'll be doing this one with Liz with kind of more general insights for crowdfunding. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. We've sort of crafted a 1 hour intensive presentation with the guys at Sundance Collab, and so that's tomorrow 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern. It's free to join, so come along. We've worked pretty hard on this one. I'm quite happy with this. I think it will be the most kind of distilled presentation. So we'll try and cram as much in there, and there'll be a Q&A at the end as well.
Great. But before I let you go, Elise, I'm just going to scan through our questions at the Ask a Question tab there to see if there's anything that is specific to you. I'm not seeing anything, but if people have other questions, someone was asking, what is the website for Kickstarter? You're Kickstarter.com, right? And
we sure are. Yes.
You Google Inside Voices, you'll find yourself there.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, well, for anyone who has other questions, tune into the webinar tomorrow. Elise, thank you very much for this initiative.
So nice to see you.
And for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. Have a great afternoon.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Now, our final guest is Gary Hustwit, filmmaker of many years. Before Gary worked in film, he had a career in the music business where he learned a lot about connecting with audiences by touring with bands, and he transferred that knowledge to his filmmaking career. He's now made several films about design, from his first Helvetica to his most recent the designer Dieter Rams. And I've always admired Gary for not only his filmmaking, but for the strong connection he makes with his audience. He's been collecting emails from his audience for over 15 years and built a really robust mailing list that has enabled him to gain a lot more independence than most filmmakers have by doing crowdfunding for his projects and doing direct distribution via VOD and DVDs. He's turned his past material into books. And so some of the things that Elise was talking about as being ripe for inside voices, I think Gary has pioneered a lot of this stuff already. So Gary, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me.
So let's just start with your own experiences as a filmmaker and how COVID-19 quarantine has affected you and what you've been thinking about in adapting to these times.
Sure. Well, obviously, it's like affected projects that are in production. And depending on where they are, it's like if you're already in post, it's probably not going to be such a huge impact. But if you're just starting to shoot, you're just going to have to wait it out. I know a lot of filmmakers doing kind of like filming or screen capturing Skype or Zoom interviews with their subjects to try to keep the kind of story going. And this whole idea of like, does now the pandemic really kind of need to be a character in your film if you're making something that's about current events. So that's one side of it. The other side is just kind of how this has impacted our business and revenue. I mean, like you said, I self-distribute all the films through my own company. We do licensing deals with like a BBC or HBO or whoever for broadcast, but we keep all the VOD rights. We do a lot of different kind of merchandise for the different films and sort of control that all ourselves. So what I've seen, it's a kind of a small sample size over the past 3 weeks, but obviously people are watching more online video content now everywhere. And just in our video on demand, I'm seeing like a 2 to 3 times increase over what we would have been in a similar month. So that's kind of trickling down to, like independent filmmakers like us. But maybe 3 weeks ago, I was also just kind of feeling like I wanted to do something. And I have this archive of films that I felt like, it doesn't cost me anything to give them away. And everybody is staying indoors. And maybe that was a way that I could kind of help the greater good and just get the films out. So I started giving the films away for free 3 weeks ago, streaming them one film every week, just no questions asked, just putting it up on the website and letting people watch. And the response has just been amazing. So many people just getting to see the films. And I just feel like right now it's hard to kind of go out and like sell something. Especially that doesn't have some, relation to what's happening, now around the world. So I kind of went the opposite way and just went with like radical generosity and just give the films away, put them out there. Again, it doesn't cost me anything.
But you told me something interesting happened when you were giving the films away, in that it did wind up having some revenue benefits for you. Am I right?
Well, I mean, we're getting hundreds of thousands of people coming to the website, so it's definitely like people are still, I mean, we're a 2-3 person, operation. We're still kind of coming in. Our studio is walking distance from my house, so I'm still coming in and like shipping out posters and things like that. So we're still getting orders, but also just increasing the mailing list. I mean, I've had probably 5,000 people added to the mailing list the email list in the past 3 weeks, and all the social has gone up too, because people are just passing it around. So there are benefits if you put something out there, that's free and share it with people. I always feel like it'll come back. That spirit will come back around to you. So that's kind of what I've tried to do, over the past few weeks, and I'm going to keep doing it until I run out of films. Even then, I've got some ideas for repurposing some things that I haven't released yet that maybe I can keep releasing too. So
we'll go. So I want to get to repurposing in a second, but I want to stay for a moment on this idea of your database, because you really started inspiring me 15 years ago when you started working on Helvetica, and I think you were one of the earliest filmmakers I knew who was really concentrating on building your own database and keeping in touch with the fans of your film and rolling over that fandom from one film to the next. In fact, in the classes I teach at the School of Visual Arts, I've been telling students over the years that, it used to be to make a film, you needed a camera and an editing system. And now I think the third equally important tool is a database to maintain a relationship with your audience.
Sure.
So could you just talk for a little bit more about, how you use your database?
I mean, like you mentioned before, before I was in films, I was doing independent music and working with indie record labels and bands and touring a lot. And that's just kind of part of the way you did things. It was just the way you had to do things. You wanted to be in touch with your audience. You went out and saw them at shows, and you wanted to, be able to let them be involved in the projects and support it and get the word out when you wanted to get the word out. So, I don't think it's any different for independent filmmaking. You've got to use every resource that you can get, and having, even if it's a small group of people who believe in what you're doing and want to see those films made just as badly as you do. You need to kind of cultivate that community, because at the end of the day, I want to be sustainable as a filmmaker. I want to be able to make the next film, and I can't control what some commissioning editor wants or what a film festival curator happens to be in the mood to, program that year. But I can, have that direct relationship with the people who want to see the films that I'm making, and want to help out. So it's something that is super, super important. And that's, goes for social media too, but I still feel like good old fashioned email is still the most effective way, because there's so much noise out there. I mean, there's so much spam in our inboxes too, but it's more effective than a Twitter post or an Instagram post.
So I'm looking at our questions here, and Jeannie Finley from the UK.
Hi, Jeannie.
Has asked about ways of publishing films in her catalog, and so I'm wondering if you can talk about some of the platforms you've used, or what you think is an effective way to make an old film available for sale.
Yeah, I mean, for all my films, like we mostly do Vimeo on demand for our kind of independent distribution, just because you have the most control. You get, like over 80% of the money back. So if you go to my website and it says watch the films now, you're basically going to a Vimeo on demand stream. It's global. Anyone in the world can, for a couple bucks, watch one of the films. So that's my primary outlet. Then we also, go through Apple and Amazon. We use Quiver to which is an aggregator to get to those outlets. So, but man, just make it easy for people to watch the films. That's my main point, is like sometimes I'll go to a filmmaker's website and it's just, I've got to go through multiple screens or whatever to get to just, I want to watch the movie. Like, show me how I can watch the movie now. I'm in Pakistan. I want to watch the film, and just let me do it. So whatever barriers that you can get rid of for somebody who is interested, who's come to your website to watch the film, I think you need to do that. So.
I should take time to plug, it's in our comments section right now from Together Films. They've been doing a series of great webinars about screening online, about doing Q&As online. They've been doing them every Monday. At the end of this session, I'll give another plug for that.
I mean, just as an aside for the kind of online screening things, I've probably gotten 24 emails in the past week from cultural institutions, groups, schools, festivals, all along the lines of, all our events got canceled. We want to do more stuff online. Can we do a film? Can we show a film and have a Q&A? So it's people need online content, and as documentary filmmakers, this is what we do. This is like, we're the best in the world at it, to creating great videos. So if there are groups that you've worked with before, or NGOs or local groups, or whoever it is, I'd say reach out to them and see if they do want to do some online programming. And maybe it's a way to raise a little bit of a screening fee, or maybe not. Maybe it's just trying to kind of help out some of these organizations right now. But it's happening. It's a thing, and it's going to be continue to be a thing. That I think all of us should try to engage with.
Now, Elise McCave at Kickstarter talked about the understandable reticence that filmmakers might be feeling right now to ask for money for a project. And you said yourself that you were feeling that as a motivator to make your films available for a while for free. I guess I would offer a counterpoint to that, which is that this is time. For people who do have the resources, I think there is an extra generosity in wanting to help out things that we're enthusiastic about. And also, if you're a content creator who's going to make me something special that's tailored to my taste, then I know I found myself in the last few weeks signing up for new paid master classes and film subscription services that I didn't have before, but that I really want. So my own advice would be to overcome that reticence. Certainly there are people who cannot support your project, but I don't think they will be offended if you're asking. I don't know, Gary, what are your thoughts about asking at this time?
I think you can, and also, we mentioned before all the different grants and funds and everything, and we should all definitely apply for any of those there are countries or states are offering. But I think there has to be at least some recognition of the fact. What I hate is just seeing kind of business as usual posts and getting emails as if nothing is happening, just trying to sell me the new whatever. So I think there has to be some recognition that of the situation, and maybe it's, I don't know, maybe there's some sort of a hybrid. Maybe it's something that is benefiting you, but it's also benefiting a local org that you want to support, and kind of making it something that can do some greater good, but also kind of help support you too. I think obviously people who can want to support things that are both you as an independent artist, but also like all these different efforts around the world that are happening to help people that are in way greater need than us.
Gary, going back to streaming your films, I just noticed a question that is a version of a question I've seen a lot in the last few weeks of filmmakers nervous about putting their films up on some kind of video on demand site, transactional video on demand or other, because they're afraid of piracy. I wonder what your experiences have been, what you can do to safeguard against it, and at what point do you have to just stop worrying about that?
Well, I mean, if you like on Vimeo, like I'm doing them streaming only for the free films. And it's pretty, if anyone's ever tried to screen capture like an entire film, it's not a very satisfactory experience what you end up with. But at a certain point, I think you really just need to kind of, just go with it. There is only so many ways you can safeguard your stuff. And there are even ancillary benefits to having your movie pirated, which we can go into too. Like I went to Moscow and did a screening of some of the design films a few years back, and there's never been any kind of official release in Moscow or in Russia, but we had 700 people show up for the event and pay money to come. So even though there wasn't they hadn't paid for the films, people came out and paid for the events too. But I don't think should be your main worry right now if people are going to pirate your films. I think it's trying to get this stuff out there, trying to kind of stay relevant, and also pay the rent.
So I want to talk about repurposing old material.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one possible use of the Kickstarter Inside Voices project is to take a film that maybe you'd put out years ago and it had some popularity.
Yeah.
Had a following, and you've got material that you never got to use. So can you talk to me about some of the things you've done to repurpose material?
Sure. I've done several book projects, and I know now getting something printed is going to be a little bit of a challenge. But also we did these as ebooks and Kindle books too. The main one was of my first 3 films, Helvetica, Objectified, and Urbanized. Like all of us, my interviews were whatever. I used 2% of the interview in the actual film. So we had just 100 hours of these incredible conversations. So I transcribed them all and we edited them and then put it out the book. So this is just a big 800-page paperback book, but we also did it as an ebook and also as a Kindle. So that's something like if you have additional interviews that you didn't use in the film or longer versions, doing a kind of a PDF or ebook version of it, I think is one idea. I take a lot of photographs when I'm filming now too. I know a lot of other filmmakers out there are also into photography. So, you can do a photo book, you can do an ebook that is photographs. You can also do actual prints, like fine art, prints, limited edition prints. Like I've done a lot of those. Where you're just, again, it doesn't have to be anything massive, but you can, with a decent inkjet printer, you can print out some beautiful small format photographs and do an edition of 20 of them and sign them. And, that's one other thing. There are soundtrack releases. Some of us have had films that have really great soundtracks, and maybe the soundtrack didn't get its own proper release. That's another digital thing that you can kind of do if you are able to or can work with the musician that did it.
Actually, let me take this moment to talk about a special soundtrack that's coming out in relation to one of your films. This isn't exactly what you're talking about, but I want to give it props.
Oh, Brian Eno did the score for my last film, Rams, and he's releasing it as a limited vinyl release for Record Store Day, which was supposed to happen next week, but now it's been pushed back later into the summer. But that's if you can, I don't know how I got Brian Eno to do this, but if you can get someone like that to do it, there's probably some. But this. To Elise's point, this doesn't have to be massive projects. It could just be massive names. They could be, you could do something that like the Inside Voices for a couple $1,000s, and it's just, people I think want an excuse or a reason to support you, especially if you're doing some hybrid where it's actually also supporting, a local nonprofit or something that you're passionate about. But let me see. So, and then unused footage. This is another thing, because my partner Jessica did this Mavis Staples documentary, Mavis, for HBO a few years ago, and we shot like 3 incredible concerts, 3 camera shoots, and we probably used 10 minutes of it in the actual documentary. So we were looking at going back and hey, well, what we can do a full concert, and the world needs more Mavis Staples right now. So that might be a thing that we do. So look back at those drives and see what's on there, and think about how some of that material could kind of have it a little bit of a standalone release. If you want to do it for free, you want to try to charge a few dollars for it, or you want to do kind of a crowdfunding campaign around it. We all have hundreds of hours of footage on our drives that might be something to put out.
So let me just get a couple quick questions out of the way that have come up. Melissa Regan was asking, what percentage of the people who are clicking onto your site are going on to join the mail list, and also, like, do you do a kind of Patreon type tip jar or anything like that? Or I guess she's also obviously curious how many people who are coming through are turning into some kind of paying customer.
Yeah, well, let's see. We've had about 250,000 people come and watch the films, and I think we've probably gotten 5,000 mailing list ads. So do the math. I mean, it's still up pretty small. It's a couple percent. But it's something, and it's hard to see how that translates to, like I said, the VOD, paid VOD has also gone up, and I don't know what the correlation there is, other than, again, people are watching a lot more online video content now. But and there is like there is a tip jar on there. I think it's a few hundred people have donated something, but that's not really the point. And then the social media has gone, has increased too, in terms of like followers and stuff. So I don't know. It's all kind of happening right now. We just released Rams, which is my latest film, today. So I'll know more, I guess, in the months to come. But at this point, I don't really care. I just, it feels good to like do something, and even if it's just putting out a design movie that people can get distracted by, or something. But again, I think we all want to feel like we're doing something for the greater good, and this was sort of an easy way for me to do that.
Yeah. And so the last question I'll ask from the list here, Amy and J.R. Jones are asking, what's your number one tip for building up your audience email list?
Have an audience email list. I'm shocked that a lot of people don't. I have so I use Squarespace for my websites, and they in the past year have started like an email list management program, which I think works pretty well, and the emails look nice, and it's pretty cheap compared to MailChimp and some of the other ones out there. So just don't over email people, and don't sell every time that you email. It should be a mix of just like cool, interesting things that you want to let people know about, and also like what you're doing.
When you say don't over email, what do you think is a good rate?
Oh, I usually try to do once a month. I've done more lately just because every week we're releasing a new free film. So I figured if it's free, people would want to know about it. So I'm doing weekly for the time being. But in general, I try to stick to one a month. And then like I'm posting on social and all that stuff all the time.
Well, Gary, thank you very much. Again, you can go to Gary's website, hustwit.com, to see what's streaming and to check out more of his work. We look forward to seeing what you're doing next.
Thanks, Tom, and stay safe, everybody.
Okay, thank you. So as we close out here, I want to give a big thanks to IFC Films Unlimited, our sponsor. The subscription site is home to great documentaries, dramas, comedies. You'll find profiles of real-life characters like photographer Vivian Meyer, the horse whisperer Buck, comedian Joan Rivers, and it's going to keep you entertained and nourished with great filmmaking for the weeks to come. IFC Films Unlimited is available in the US and Canada. And now some further resources to keep you busy wherever you live in the world. Sign up for our Monday Memo email that delivers you the week's documentary news. You can do that for free at docnyc.net. You can dig into the archives of my Pure Nonfiction podcast, where I interview filmmakers like Asif Kapadia and Rachel Lears and Werner Herzog. There are 115 episodes you can hear for free on Apple, Spotify, or other podcast platforms. And lastly, DocNYC's marketing team at Together Films will hold their 4th weekly webinar next Monday. They've been sharing invaluable advice for how to do virtual screenings and engage audiences online. You can watch their previous installments on Crowdcast. This webinar here has been recorded and will stay available for free on Crowdcast, so you can share this link with your friends. We also plan on doing more, so keep us posted in the comments section here. Keep writing to us about the questions you have, the topics you'd like to see in the future. Stay tuned to our Facebook and Twitter feeds at DocNYC Fest. I want to give a big thanks to our guests, Asad Muhammad, Elise McCave, and Gary Hustwit. Thanks to our production coordinator, Sarah Modo, our industry director, Caitlin Boyle, and executive director, Raphael Nehausen. On behalf of the DocNYC team, we look forward to watching whatever you wind up doing during these times at home. Stay safe.